What up, guys? Joachim here, and this video is going to be moving on to John chapter 1, verse 5 as we continue reading through the Gospel of John in Greek. I had planned on trying to go through each verse of the first chapter of John one by one, but I'm kind of thinking that this seems to be going in a way better, I think, than what I had initially thought it might. And we may begin doing two verses per day after we get through a few sections here. So we'll kind of review and see how things are going once we get up to verse 19, which is the third section of the first chapter, as it's designated in this interlinear Bible that we're using for it. But I think that probably it'll be good to go up to two verses per day then. And I'm not sure how I'm not sure if I'll do this entire thing on YouTube where we go through verse by verse like this. But I definitely think that this is really good for me. Like, I'm learning definitely a lot of Greek, and I think each day as I review the previous verses and look on to new verses that I'm getting a feel, like as I did with when I was studying Hebrew and learning Hebrew. I definitely feel like I'm learning a lot more Greek a lot more quickly than I did when I was younger and studying Hebrew. But anyway, so I feel like it is going well. If you've been doing the review each day and going through those things, I hope you feel the same. So anyways, we're going to move on. Verse 5, I'll read it. We'll break down each word just as we have before, and then preview verse 6 before we move on. So verse 5 begins, Ke tophos en tiskotia fine, Ke iskotia αυτό ou κατέλαβεν. I'll read that one more time. Και το φως εν τη σκοτία φύνε, και η σκοτία αυτό ου καταλάβεν. And that is K, which means and, K, and. Το φως, the light. Το φως, the light. Το φως, the light. In τη σκοτία, in the darkness. In τη σκοτία, in the darkness. In τη σκοτία, in the darkness. Fine, shines. Fine, shines. Fine, shines. Que η σκοτία, and the darkness. Que η σκοτία, and the darkness. Αυτό ου καταλάβεν, it not overcame. Αυτό ου καταλάβεν, it not overcame. Αυτό ου καταλάβεν, it not overcame. So notice here that when we say αυτό, that earlier in a previous portion, like when we get to the beginning of verse 4, it's in αυτό, and it's spelled a little bit differently. So the αυτό in verse 4 ends with an omega. So αυτό, and this αυτό down here that we are looking at in verse 5 ends with an omicron, but they both sound the same, so it's the same sounding word, but it's actually a different word. I think that in Greek sometimes words like him, like αυτό, can actually mean it, though. I'm not entirely sure about that, though, so that'll be something to try to continue noticing. I'm avoiding looking up a lot of vocabulary or grammar rules like that right now with Greek, and you want to notice things like that, and then as you learn them through studying vocabulary later on, then they make a lot of sense, and you can basically hear them once or twice, and you just know it because you're so familiar with the practice, or that you've seen it in literature, that you pick up on it right away. Whereas I think in language learning, if you learn grammar right away, like the way it's taught in a lot of universities, it's gonna be very difficult to pick up on. So for thousands of years now, humans learned languages through hearing and repeating, and maybe through reading and picking up the language that way, and that was the norm, and people seem to do it very well. For the past couple hundred years, there has been the trend to not do that, and so when you hear modern university teachers talk about language learning, they act like learning through grammar or beginning with grammar rules has been the norm. That's the norm if you look back over the past 200 or so years and think that that's the way things have always been. But, as a civilization, we've existed for thousands and thousands of years now, and that has not been the norm for most of human history. But, we'll forgive them that. I don't think our current modern language learning system, especially for biblical language, is a very good one. So I think it's better to begin learning vocabulary, learning hearing these phrases, and picking up the way that I'm trying to do it here. And I think it's more effective this way, so that's why I'm doing it. Anyway, so that was verse 5. Let's go back and review a few verses, and then we'll preview for that. You guys should continue to review with the review materials that I posted below in the description box. But verse 4 says, "In αυτό ζωήν, και η ζωήν το φως των ανθρώπων." In αυτό ζωή. In αυτό ζωήν. Verse 4, "In him was the life," or "in him was life." In αυτό ζωήν, in him was life. In αυτό ζωήν, in him was life. Και η ζωήν το φως των ανθρώπων. Και η ζωή, and the life. Και η ζωή, and the life. Και η ζωή, and the life. Ή το φως των ανθρώπων was the light of men. Ή το φως των ανθρώπων was the light of men. Ή το φως was the light. Φως των ανθρώπων, light of men. In το φως των ανθρώπων was the light of men. All right, let's go back and review verse 3. Πάντα δι αυτό εγίνετο, και χωρίς αυτό εγίνετο, ούτε εν κογέγοναν. Πάντα δι, all things through. Πάντα δι αυτό εγίνετο. Αυτό εγίνετο, him came into being. Αυτό, him, εγίνετο came into being. Και χωρίς αυτό εγίνετο, ούτε εν ογέγοναν. Και χωρίς, and without. Και χωρίς, and without. Αυτό εγίνετο, him came into being. Αυτό, him, εγίνετο came into being. Ούτε εν ογέγοναν. Not even one thing that has come into being. Ούτε, not even. En, one, or one thing. O, that. Yegonan, yegonen, has come into being. Yegonen has come into being. So verse 3. Πάντα δι αυτό εγίνετο, και χωρίς αυτό εγίνετο, ούτε εν ογέγοναν. All things through him came into being, and without him came into being not even one thing that has come into being. Of course, if we read that in English, we would probably translate it a little differently so that it made sense in the English language, because this actually is not written this way to make sense in English. It's following the Greek, which is a different language, has a different word order. So if I were going to translate this into English, I might say all things through him came into being. That probably would, that's the same. And it says, and without him, nothing came into being that has come into being. So I probably would go with the more literal translation, but that's just me. Different translators have done it differently. They're probably right, but this is following a Greek pattern, and we're using English words to try to make sense of these Greek words. So these are kind of equivalents. Anyways, verse 2, Utos in en archi proston theon, and was in the beginning God. Verse 3, Πάντα δι αυτό εγίνετο, και χωρίς αυτό εγίνετο ουδέ εν ογέγοναν. All things through him came into being, and without him came into being not even one thing that has come into being. Εν αυτό ζωήν, και η ζωήν το φως των ανθρώπων. In him life was, and the life was the light of men. Verse 5. Και το φως εν τη σκοτία φύνε, Και η σκοτία αυτό ου καταλάβεν. And the light in the darkness shines, and the darkness it not overcame. Okay, so that you would probably translate into English. You would say, and the light was in the darkness, and the darkness could not overcome it, or did not overcome it. And let's preview verse 6. I haven't really practiced this one, but there's a lot of repeats. So, ηγένετο anthropos απεσταλμένος para Θεό. Ούνομα αυτό Ioannis. Ioannis. I think it's Ioannis. I'll practice that better for tomorrow. But you guys have the recording below. You guys take it easy, and I will talk to you in tomorrow's video.